Hey, Dr. Tara Vossenkemper here, and you are listening to the Culture Focus Practice podcast. Today is one of my favorite styles of episode. We're doing an owner's room special. So you should know by now the owner's room is where we ditch any sort of polish or structure or listicles or bulleted items, etc. There's no professionalism. It's out the window. And my favorite thing, what is becoming my favorite thing, I should say, is I also have a guest with me. Yay, second one ever. So with me today is Nicole Brewer. I'll let her say hi. Hi, Nicole.
Hello. I'm excited.
Um,
I was telling you the other day, I'm your second guest, but this is my first podcast.
yeah, that surprises me, actually. I think I was shocked to hear that because I feel like
Yeah,
you
for
should
as
be
much
on
as I
way
want to
more.
know. Oh.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it's like as much qualities you have to offer too, So okay, let me tell you just real quick about Nicole, and then we're going to get straight into the owner's room stuff. So,
Okay.
Nicole is the founder and owner of Rethink Therapy, which is a thriving group practice based in Las Vegas. That was established 2016. It's known in the community for an innovative training program called Rethink Residency, which is designed to support newly graduated therapists in the licensure process while also equipping them with skills to thrive in a sustainable group practice environment, which is fucking awesome. So, in addition to leadership, like I said, founder and owner of that practice, she is also an EMDR certified therapist and consultant. Recently, Nicole launched Rethink Your Practice, which is a consulting brand dedicated to helping group practice owners build high performing teams and operationally sound businesses. Oh, I love that. Okay. And then through the consulting practice, through Rethink Your Practice, Nicole guides leaders using her 5 essential pillars of group practice infrastructure: hiring, onboarding, training, utilization, and retention. Really incredible. And then let's get up to date. Current passion lies in helping group practice owners gain real traction in hiring and retaining highly skilled clinicians, ensuring that great care starts with well-supported therapists. I am so pumped. So again, the owner's room is where we get real about what's going on behind the scenes, emotionally and strategically. And today's episode is in perfect alignment with Nicole and what she has to offer, all of which will be linked in the show notes. And also, if you're watching on YouTube, in the YouTube description, just as a heads up. So today is for every single leader, i.e., all of us, who has let silence speak louder than the values because of fear of losing someone. Before we go further, make sure you subscribe if this resonates with you, because the more you do that, the more like-minded people will find this and it will likely resonate with them. We're going to cover 5 questions, and then we're going to do a real life scenario. And what I love about this is that the guest gets to pick the questions. So these are questions we haven't practiced or talked through. We have just looked and decided, and we're going to get straight into it. Question number 1, Nicole, have I ever let someone coast or misalign because I was afraid they'd leave? So it'd be, have you ever let someone coast or misalign because you were afraid they'd leave?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely I have. I think that how this is played out is probably evolved a little bit, like the level of coasting.
Yeah.
So in the early years, I just couldn't afford any administrative loss. So when I would lose an intake coordinator, all I would think about is how I would be ran over with the workload myself. And so I felt like I would put up with maybe work productivity or a lack of follow through or not following policies and procedures in a way that I know I didn't like, but I just also didn't have any margin. I wasn't good at foresight at that point, and I didn't have enough margin to shoulder the burden of them being gone. And so I feel like I made a lot of decisions early on due to just spreading myself way too thin and not asking for help soon enough. And so that really resonates with me early on, and just being afraid of oh, if I say something, is this ultimately going to lead to their departure? And then I'm going to have to absorb this workload. I think later on, how it has evolved sometimes is not being afraid of them leaving, because that's a fear that I no longer really hold in the same way. If somebody's not aligned, I want them to go, not in a way of get out, but more in a way I want you to be in situation that works for you, and I need something that works for me. But more like almost like, ooh, how does this look to the team type of deal?
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like is more, I have to regularly check that piece, if that makes sense. Like, how does this look? And like almost being like way too absorbed with like, what does the team think about this? You know?
Yeah, I'm thinking about this
Uh,
almost like the evolution of practice ownership or evolution of leadership,
yeah,
it's like initially it's
yeah,
I'm not going to say it's entirely fear-based, but initially the decisions around like what we do with someone who's maybe misaligned or just kind of coasting and maybe underperforming, but they're not causing enough
yeah.
of an issue. And it's almost like this initial stuff. It's really fear-based because in the beginning, especially, I would be hard pressed to find somebody who had the infrastructure set up at the
Mhm.
outset to
Yeah,
to seamlessly transition one person out and another
for
person in.
sure.
There's no
It's just
fucking
not there.
way.
It's
It's
not
not
there.
there. N-
You don't even know what to ask for at that
No.
point. Yeah.
Yeah, it took a
Um,
solid year of having a marketing director in place. And I mean, sincerely, a solid year. And I told her when
yeah.
she started, um, we've never had this role. Here are
Mhm.
broad responsibilities, but
Yep.
it's going to evolve. Like
Mhm.
I don't have any felt sense for what this is like. So you need to know from the outset, like this thing we're doing, we are co-building, like we're co-creating this as we go.
Yeah.
But I think on that timeline, there's initially that fear-based, like, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? Or
Mhm.
how will I either absorb the work or how am I going to get somebody else in to
Mhm.
train? I need to get everything
Yeah.
documented because nothing is, or it's very,
Yeah.
very like way too loosely documented. And
Yeah.
all of the nuance lives inside the person's head. But
Yeah.
then you get to this other place. I don't know if it's like a spectrum, like almost like a
Mhm.
pendulum clock swing, or if it's
Yep.
like there's more evolution that takes place and we're just not at that point yet. But then I think eventually people reach that second thing you're talking about, which is, God, how's the
Mhm.
team going to respond to this? Is this known? Like, does everybody know this person is just
Yeah. Yeah.
coasting?
For sure. Yeah. I think before, what I also noticed would cause an action for me is I felt like I had to have all the pieces of the solution determined before I even started to broach the conversation of, is this a good fit? Or letting the person go. Because side note, I actually haven't let too many people go over the years. It's been more of a conversation of, is this the right fit, and people opt out. So like firing is something that I've only really done a couple of times. But like I would be really obsessed with the solution. And then at some point I realized like one of the skills I know that I'm good at and confident in is getting a solution. And I don't need to have this all done out in advance. In fact, it's better if I just do it in real time because it's like a treat to myself. Like, and I almost had to do some mind work on like, you love solutions. It's a fun day for you when you get to go into the office and it's all about solution. That's a movement heavy day. So those are fun days. Those aren't high stress days. You don't need to ruin days and weeks in advance. Just go in and like, this is horrible to think, but like, just act like it's like Christmas come early, you know? So like that mindset shift changed. And then also every single time I have waited, I have lived to regret it. You know what I mean? Like waited in terms of like, you know what? May's not the best month, so let me wait till June. Like, no, I should have done it in May. In fact, I probably should have done it in August. And I'm trying to really like lean into this whole, as soon as I have the inclination, move. Because like my intuition really has never been wrong. It's my fear of my intuition that has caused me to misstep, I feel like.
Yeah, there's two things that come up for me right away. And
Mhm.
actually there's a third question that's been like poking me this whole time. One
Yeah.
is the Gino Wickman stuff, in Traction, he writes about 36 hours of pain. Like when you
Oh, yeah.
know it's time to fire
Hmm.
someone and need just
Yeah.
36 hours and needs to be
Hmm.
done. Like
Yeah.
boom, period.
Yeah.
So this like drawing it out,
Yeah.
it literally never helps. And the reality is that
Never.
this person also knows to
Yeah.
some extent that
Yeah.
this is working.
Yeah.
It's not working for them either. And so yeah, I think that's one thing that I was thinking about. The second thing was you said not verbatim, but
Mhm.
your instinct is pretty spot on.
Yeah.
I think I this is my own stuff coming up because I'm so I would agree. My instinct tends to be right, but I don't like to make a move without multiple other almost like points of data
Mm,
around me. So I think I'm
yeah,
wondering, again, there's two questions. One is,
yeah,
I think I'm wondering how you do that. Like, is there
yeah,
a either not like a gut check system you have in place necessarily, but something that you do in addition to this isn't working? And, I know this isn't working. It's not going to end well.
yeah,
And here's all this other data that would support this. And so these are not to get litigious, I guess would be the
yeah,
language, and not
yeah,
to be like HR focused, but almost like the CYA. I hate CYA. I hate that
yeah,
concept. I hate the need to even think about it. But yeah, like the documentation or
yeah.
feedback from other people around them. So this is one question, and I'm gonna say the other just so I don't forget.
Mhm.
We started off talking about like the misalignment piece,
Mhm.
and I think you referenced administrative people. I'm also thinking about clinicians.
Yeah, for sure.
Is the approach different? You know what I mean? Like, what you said about the admin and letting someone coast or misalign because then you'd have to take on the work and there's fear around finances. And, now it's like, fuck, is the team going to be upset? How's it going to impact the team?
Yeah.
Is it the exact same thought process with a clinician being a
Mhm.
misalignment?
Yeah,
That's like pick your poison today, the misalignment thing with clinicians, or then
yeah.
also this your own gut
Mhm.
juxtaposed with is there additional data you look at too?
Yeah, yeah, those are good questions. Okay, let me, like, weave through, both. Okay, so, starting with, like, how do I know there's misalignment? Because the way I'm talking about it's almost like I'm like, "I had a bad vibe, and so I fired him."
It's like, yeah, in my gut, my chakras were off. I love
Yeah,
chakras for the
right?
record. I'm not trying to like hate, but like there's
Yeah.
just alignment.
It was a misalignment, so that's bad for you, like,
Yeah, no, I get it.
um,
yeah.
yeah,
But
so
also, I do think
yeah,
some people, absolutely my gut is spot on more
yeah, for
often than not. But I
sure.
like even if, I still want shit around me.
Yeah, for sure. So, it is a little more detailed than that, and this has actually been something I've been focusing on a bit because I actually don't functionally I only have one person that reports to me anymore. So, I'm not doing these functions. I had to figure out how to teach this. So, like, the first thing is everybody in my group has a literal number they're accountable to. And so when that's the case and having a literal number and sort of checkpoints, it becomes pretty easy to see when somebody's performing or not performing. We also have pretty detailed job descriptions on, like, what responsibilities are and what people should be doing when. So we have about a 4 checkpoint process where there's a coaching, a verbal, a written, and a PIP. And so people can jump at any point, but that doesn't typically happen. What's more common is I know you follow the EOS framework, is having a GWC gets it once at capacity, like basically making sure is the person aligned to the conversation. That's what really causes things to change more than anything is like if somebody's not performing and we've had a coaching and maybe a verbal, at that point we tend to like stylistically say like, hey, like administrative or therapist, it seems like something's not clicking here. Like, talk me through this. Like, what's working, what's not. We're just having one of our values is authenticity. We're having a very authentic conversation. And like, we mean what we say and we say what we mean. And so, if I think that a therapist maybe has a low retention rate because they're so very, like, for lack of a better term, like uninspiring for change, that the clients just can't even see themselves doing the work, I'm known to say things like, "I gotta be honest with you. As I'm talking to you, I feel lost in this conversation, and I can't help but wonder if your clients might feel the same." You know what I mean? Stuff like that.
Yes.
And then so when you get authentic like that, it's pretty easy to get to a conclusion, even if the person maybe doesn't possess those same skills quite yet in their own journey or even that same insight. They can quickly see like, "Ooh, maybe this isn't a fit," or "I want to be here, and so let's talk logistics. Maybe I'm not here yet, but let's talk logistics of how I can," right? So demonstrating like they want it. And so, yes, I do follow and document that, and the team does. And then basically the numbers just show if somebody's off. And we're checking that on a rhythmic basis to make sure. So, weekly, monthly, but then we also don't hold their hand. Like, it's an annual number thing for us. They either, if they don't make it, they're on a PIP. Like,
Mhm.
that's cultural. You know what I mean? They know.
Super helpful. Yeah, I feel like you're getting at both questions. I don't think I realized how similar our approaches are
Mm,
to even the disciplinary stuff. So, like, we have a 4-step, almost exactly the same, but your
yeah.
language for step 1 is different from ours. In
Hmm.
essence, that's what we're doing is coaching and support. And
Yeah.
then also all the way through to
Hmm.
self of the therapist in conversation when you're
Yeah.
trying to explore what the fuck is going on.
Yeah.
Only going to say, like, "Ooh, yeah, I know how I feel when I sit with you. I can't help but wonder if that is the experience of other people." This maybe isn't a question for today, but that just makes me about even like therapeutic style, where I think about,
Mhm.
for me, it's the here and now. It's the existential slant. It's the
Yeah.
Harry Ponte stuff, it is the self with the therapist. Yeah. But I wonder about somebody who, I don't know. I think that it seems like anyway, your comfort level with emotional depth is high. But if
Mhm.
somebody has like a low level of, let's say they score low on something like meta emotions, which is a Gottman
Mhm.
concept or a Gottman piece. Oh, they call it emotion dismissing now. My point is somebody who's feeling about feelings is like their tolerance is kind of low. I wonder if those people who might have a low tolerance for the emotionally deep conversations are the ones
Yeah.
pulling inward for stuff to say like, oh God, I think this might be happening,
Mhm.
putting it out there and there's not a clear resolution. I wonder if people who are emotion dismissing or tend towards being low in meta emotions are not going to do that conversation. Like they're
Yeah.
struggle with it, or they're going to be much more cut and dry. This is the problem. I need you to do this.
Mhm.
I don't have any idea actually. I'm just thinking as I'm talking like, oh fuck, I wonder if that's literally it's going to be harder for somebody who doesn't do this thing by nature of how they exist in the world.
Yeah, I think it is, and I have found that those are conversations where we're coming to a conclusion together that I'm highly guiding, or those are the times where there's been fires. Because the inside is so low, or the emotional tolerance is so low that the person can't stay with a realistic solution based on the set of responsibilities that are in front of them. So we've had this both with admin and with therapists where it's like, you're saying this, but this is the action. And like, out of respect for you, we don't want to just like keep having the same conversation over and over again. So now we're at a decision point, and all we have to go off of is history. That's what we're going to use is our measure of if we continue. And we don't see enough progress here for this to make sense. Out of respect for continued investment in our team and out of respect for you, because we don't want you in a position you're not thriving in. Like those have been times where it's been like, I guess like that's a termination, right? They're not electing, we're telling them.
I actually love that. Like all we have to use is our history and based
Yeah.
on this, if
Yeah.
if we take what we know and we continue it forward, what's the logical conclusion? Like what's the
Mm-hmm.
logical outgrowth of the thing that has been taking place consistently?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's great.
So again, I don't think that like this is where intuition, I don't think that I like ever thought that through until I had to teach it to a leadership team. When you're working with clients and there's a lot of like magical thinking going on and you're like, yeah, these are really great ideas, but just like they've literally never come to fruition. So the chances that they will now are slim to none and borderline we're in like we're thinking mythically right now, right? And so like like they'd be like, well, I just think they can, and I'd be like, yeah, this employee maybe can, but they've literally not once ever.
Yeah.
So like, let's just take this down to brass tacks now.
Literally call a spade a spade. Like they
Yeah,
can, sure, they're capable and they haven't. They
yeah,
haven't
yeah.
yet. And how much longer do you want to wait until they might? Whatever it was you just said just made me think about Chat GPT. And I know your
Mm,
relationship with, I know
yeah.
you heavily use chat. I'm the
Hi.
same. I have a lot of big numbers, intimate. Well, I wasn't going to say that, but if you want to, that's fine.
I can say
But,
that.
but my thought is, yes, same. I had created a whole leadership manifesto. Like, how do we show
Hmm.
up as leaders? I know how I show up and I know what is right and isn't, like what I want and what I
Yeah,
don't want. But if you were to ask me, Tara, just give me the bullet points, I
yeah.
wouldn't have any fucking idea. Like, I don't know. I don't know, give
Yeah.
me a scenario and I'll tell you what I would do.
Yeah, for
So I would
sure.
have chat give me my bullet points. Like, okay, chat, give me some scenarios, ask me some questions, just detail out how I show up as a leader and what are the key things that I always want to ensure either take place or inform the
Mhm.
conversation or circle around us as we're like engaging in something.
Yeah.
That is so helpful that now that's like, it's a leadership manifesto. It's of me, but also it's leadership team. Now we are all responsible for this thing. Yeah, I can't do that either. And so that's where my bestie comes in, my bestie chat.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I like that.
Okay. I have more questions. You want to keep
Okay,
going?
let's do it. Yeah.
Question number 2. Am I
Mhm.
staying nice to feel in
Mhm.
control or to feel liked?
Yeah, this is like an ongoing life struggle for me. The answer is yes, I do fall into this. And I'm sort of in the place where I'm like, maybe this is going to be a lifetime journey for me because I had to like do some significant like therapy work around like this idea of being a nice person. Like I'm bad if I'm not being nice. And if I'm setting boundaries, I'm not nice. And I have to be nice if I'm a boss because there's a lot of not nice bosses. And I'm a therapist, so I want to be a nice boss. In the past, when I was less skilled as a leader, I think I let this run me a lot. Like, I have to deliver a message in a nice way. And that really skewed my ability to be authentic. I would not be authentic because I would filter it through this nice lens. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When in reality, being clear is being kind. Like, and I say that to my team all the time, to be clear is to be kind. Like, I didn't coin that. Somebody's been saying that for a long time. I don't know who, but like, it just feels like it's a said thing. Like, so like the kindest thing I could do is to be clear. And if there's a boundary being set because of a boundary violation, that's not my responsibility. Like, that's something that was someone else's choices. I'm just simply holding them accountable. And if they have a reaction to that, also not on me.
Mm.
My job is to just show up and be clear. But I think that for a long time, I had trouble differentiating setting a boundary with being like mean and not nice. Does that make sense? Or like,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, it does make sense. I love that you said this. I have 2 thoughts. One
Mhm.
is fuck when people get mad that somebody else holds a boundary.
Yeah.
That infuriates me. That infuriates me. That
Mhm.
person decided to do something shitty, but you
Mhm.
expect this other person, whether it's me or somebody else, to not say anything? Like, how does that
Yeah.
make any sense? I say that like I don't struggle with that in my own life still. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a constant thing.
Constant.
You doing something shitty is not my responsibility to not say, "Hey, that's shitty." That
Yeah.
was not the right thing to do based on the
Yeah.
boundary. You way
Yeah.
crossed it. And now you're mad? Well, that's your own fucking fault. Like you crossed the boundary in the first place. You did something and now you get to reap what you sow, or you have these ramifications for your actions, natural or
Mhm.
logical consequences, whatever language. There's language for this in every domain, every discipline. I'm thinking of that like just because somebody is upset about being held accountable doesn't make the person holding them accountable wrong or bad. So
Yeah.
just happy to hear that. But my other I don't know if maybe niceness is just niceness, but it made me
Mhm.
think, well, is there something like deeper it's connected to? Like, what's the thing that if I'm not nice, dot, dot, dot. So I'm like curious about that because I have my own stuff. For me, it's not niceness. It would be something along the lines of emotional caretaking. If somebody's not okay, I need to help fix that. Like, I
Yeah.
need to, are you good? I need to be more clear. I need to be more supportive. I need to make sure I double back and flip over all the stones. Did I miss any? What else could it be that I could have done? Or what could we do? Is there something structural? I start to question, like I'm turning inward and doing like all sorts of reflection on me and like the structure that's in place. And at this point, maybe I do that, but it lasts less. And also I have people around me to help be like, no, Tara, the structure is very sound. That's why we do this thing. And so there's like shit in place, of course, to help and probably
Mhm.
therapy too. So my point is, it's not niceness to me. And I can say, like, oh, yeah, no, emotional caretaking is, I'm a sense for where that comes from. So I think I'm curious, like, what does niceness equal, if that makes sense?
Yeah, like, how do I know if I'm being nice? Or, like, what does niceness mean? Like,
Yes.
where does that yeah.
That piece. What is nice mean?
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think probably roots for me in this, like, place where, like, I show up here and I talk and it's like, wow, like, Nicole's a social person and, like, she's probably really fun at a dinner party, and, like, I think I am, but I also am, like, at my core, an extremely blunt person that has little to no filter, and I feel like I can see things pretty clearly, and oftentimes I feel like I have a solution before a problem's even seen. These are common traits that, like, I feel like, people that run companies have, right?
Yes.
But they're less I don't wanna say they're less common in women. They're definitely less socially acceptable. That's for damn sure. And so, like, I feel as though sometimes the world, like, this is my stuff, but, like, doesn't accept isn't, like, naturally accepting of my personality set, you know? Like, there's a lot of, like, negative feedback around that sometimes for me, and that, like, like, women are tend to be, like, naturally very caretaking, and I can be a caretaking person, but that's not my strongest skill set. Like, problem solving's my strongest skill set, and, like, seeing things clearly and saying them quickly. I think that maybe I've had a couple, like, negative experiences in my life where, I've been labeled like a bitch, for lack of a better term. And I'm sure, like, earlier, like, in my life, my execution wasn't oh so polished. Fair, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that, like, some of those early times when I was just learning how to be me, I've, like, just sort of carried some of that undertone of trauma just too long, And so, like, that will taint me a little bit. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that definitely makes sense. Yes.
So sorry, I'm not sure if I fully answered that, but I think that that's what it's about for me. And, like, I've always, like, lived out sort of a different gender role than what is typical, I feel like, in the community that I live in and, like, my husband and I have. And so it's like, I think I am always sort of thinking, like, that's where, like, nice comes in. Like, I think that piece. And then over here, when I'm talking about nice, I'm not just talking about boundaries. I'm talking about when employees will come and say, like, I want this, a new chair up into more money.
Mhm.
And I'm like, well, no, can't do that. And then I'm like, gosh, that's not nice. You know what I mean? Because, like, one thing I feel like I, like, love being and is really core to me is I love being very giving. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And I love to, like, I wanna give as much as I can, and so
Yeah.
when I can't do a give that someone wants, it's really sad for me, and I can sometimes distort it, and I'm not being nice. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of
Um,
sense. As you were talking, I was thinking about I'm gonna reference an engine, but it's
yeah.
funny, I grew up like my dad works on car. There's not like a memory that I have of there not being a car in the garage that he's working on for somebody, you know? My brother
Yeah.
still is a mechanic and a service writer and whatever. And
Yeah.
so I grew up around cars and them constantly
Mhm.
being worked on, but I don't know jack shit about cars. But it does make me think about pistons firing and how,
Mhm.
if you have, let's say 6 and they're all firing, they fire so quickly. It's almost like you could have a piece of paper on top and write on it. But if you stopped it at any given point that you stop it, the height of the pistons will not match up. And at
Mhm.
some point, like if you stop it here, maybe piston 2 is higher than 4 and 5. It's sort of like the order and the height are all a little
Yeah.
bit different. I
Yeah.
almost think about that with people and traits
Mm.
and the way that we show up. And it's
Mhm.
almost like at any given point, this thing might consistently be the thing that shows up
Yeah.
highest. Like for whatever reason, it's the piston that's almost always highest when you stop. It like takes up the most space. But then there's these others that heavily influence the way that we interact and the way that we show up and
Oh,
what we say or how we say it or what we expect or, whatever. Because as you were talking, I'm like, "Oh, that's so funny." I mean, I already knew that I liked you, but I feel like we're
mm.
very simpatico. Like the more
Yeah.
we talk, the more I'm like, "Oh, Jesus, yeah, we're like for real simpatico."
Yeah.
Because I am with you on the bluntness and like the just
Mhm.
saying things directly and kind. Sure, like I've been told throughout my life that I'm
Mm.
really approachable. And so I'm just gonna say. based on what others tell me, that I tend to be approachable and engage in a lot of different styles of conversation. And I'm honestly up for talking about basically anything without taking it personal in the vast majority of cases. And so
Yeah.
my point is that bluntness thing for me always gets superseded
Mm,
by emotional caretaking. So
yeah.
what is almost always my highest piston is going to be, are you okay?
Oh,
How are you?
interesting.
Are you
Yeah.
okay? I'm still
Yeah.
going to be honest, but like first, are you good? Are
Yeah.
you good?
Yeah.
And if
It's
somebody is really not good, this honesty is going to get pushed. And I'm going to say, you know what? I don't know if we should actually do this right now. How about let's just focus on like, let's come down. You come down,
yeah.
I want to make sure that we are
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Then we can have this honest conversation next. And
Yeah.
usually, of course, once you have a relationship with somebody, an established connection and rapport, that tends to happen pretty quick and you can shift into the honesty. But it's almost like, fuck. For me, that's always the piston. That's the lands first, almost always. I shouldn't say always, but
Yeah.
so it's almost like it feels like a little bit flip for you that it's like the honesty piece is first. And then
Yeah.
also, this one is
Yeah.
important, but this one is the one that I can't stop. Like it's the thing that has to take place.
Yeah. Yeah. As you were talking, I was actually thinking about that, like attuning to others. I feel like I naturally pick up on others well, but because my initial inclination is like, here's what needs to be said. Like, I've really had to work with myself over the years on attuning to folks and showing up empathetic and having that timing and almost like having the impulse control within myself to say, the right message at the wrong time is the wrong message. And really like
I love that.
working with myself on that. And so I think when I get into these seasons where I'm like telling myself I'm not nice, I feel like that's a false message that's just sort of carried with me over times where I've made mistakes and I'm not being fair to myself and that like that's not who I am, but it was who I was at some point, but I learned from it, but I still like will sometimes be like, "Oh," you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, I love this. I love this conversation so much. I don't know if it's going to be helpful for anybody, but I still fucking love it.
It's helpful for us. It's
Yeah.
helpful for me.
Yeah, that's fair. That's enough. Okay. That's enough. It can be helpful for us.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like this, like everybody's got a thing, right? Maybe it's not
Everybody has
nice, but
things.
it's the one thing that like trails through life where you're like, that's not who I am. Like that's who I struggled, a piece of me that I used to struggle with.
Yep.
You-
Yep. Okay, let's keep doing this. Question number 3. Am I letting fear of fallout shape my leadership decisions?
Hope not. But again, I have done this before. I don't know if it's helpful to talk about this in like a general sense or like when I've actually done this.
For me, I think the better way is always, how have you, like
Yeah.
specifically you, like how has this shown up? We could talk broadly, but I feel like the broad stuff can be extracted from the specifics to the extent that you're comfortable sharing it.
Yeah, what came to my mind was just like how this has played out in the last couple of years, actually. Maybe like in 2022, I started really structuring my practice in terms of like frameworks, policies, and procedures. Before that, but like that's when I really got like really solid with it. And then I quickly moved into like an EOS framework that I still do, but I've like it's morphed over time. But all that to say, I was assembling a leadership team, people that would be doing things that I would no longer be doing. Leading people that lead was a new skill set for me. I didn't think it was because I had done clinical supervision for years, but teaching people how to make micro decisions and then also extrapolate data and information and then make broader decisions. That's not like a one-time training. That's like your long-standing mentorship. So when I first assembled my leadership team during the first year, there was movement in and out. And that weighed not a ton, but like I thought when I assembled the team, I naively thought, this is the team, you know, this is the dream team. We even had like a group text that I made, dream team.
Dream. It's like live and learn. I mean, I just laughing because it's like, oh, yeah, yep, I
Yep.
get it. Yep.
Yeah, that era, right?
Yeah, that era, right.
Yeah, so then I took it really hard the first time I had to like ooh, I just don't think that this is a fit for this person. Like, you know, I'm developing the position for the first time. And so I don't fully know what to look for. And then the person's doing it for the first time. So, like, I replaced one of the positions on my leadership team. Like, the clinical lead was like the hardest one for me because I had done it for so long. Right. So,
Wait, you mean the clinical lead was the hardest to let go of or the hardest to fill?
it was the hardest for me to figure out how to train, like select
Oh,
for and
got it.
train,
Thank you.
oddly enough.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
it would feel like that would be the easiest, but it was the hardest. So I say clinical lead, clinical director are one and the same, you know? So I thought I had a sound process, and then the position didn't work out. And so then I like re-interviewed and like selected somebody new. And I probably knew within a month or two intuitively, like, this isn't a fit. And I couldn't tolerate the fallout with the team of pulling that because it's such an influential position, you know? So I knew within 2 months and it dragged on for 9 months, right?
Ooh, yeah,
Um,
that's rough.
I even said to one of my integrator position was like, that was my biggest mistake of 2024, like not acting faster. And so I was really afraid of the fallout, but the fallout of me keeping the position in the way it was worse, you know?
Yes. There's no way around the fact that when we remove a person from our team, everybody else feels the effect.
Yeah.
The the intensity of the effect, I think, is just dependent on the role itself and the relationship. You know what I mean? Like, what we
Yeah.
can't predict is the intensity of the effect, of course,
Yeah.
but there is an effect. And so I'm saying that to say, on one hand, there should be time and attention and intention around letting somebody go and like how that might impact the people around you. But then
Mhm.
you run up against this other thing, which is, well, okay, and if we are only spending our time trying to control and predict and exactly precisely get right the way this is going to impact the team, we're
Yeah.
shooting ourselves in the fucking feet because then you have the opposite effect where they stay on for too long and it
Yeah.
ends up like sowing more discord. Even
Yeah.
just like a slightly wrong fit person ends
Yeah.
up sowing way more discord. And
Mhm.
it's like, you know the felt experience of having the right person in the right seat. It's hard
Yeah.
to man, this is where it's like, God, it's hard to put into words how much of a difference it makes to truly have a right person in a right seat
Yeah.
compared to mostly
Yeah.
right, I guess.
Can't be mostly right.
Night and fucking day difference.
Yeah.
And not even
Mhm.
it's not even like having an egregiously wrong person in the seat. It's
Yeah.
like just like not exactly it. And I'm thinking like you had a CD issue. Same for us. We had a clinical
Mhm.
director who I was close to for years, and they came over and started working with me. And I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. It's going to be so
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
And it was not. This person wanted to spend way more time fine tuning presentations or going and presenting, not even just for us, like elsewhere. And they wanted to
Yeah.
teach. And it's like, none of that is helpful for us moving shit forward. And so,
Yeah.
like, rocks were getting half assed done. And there was, frankly, no ownership, no initiative and ownership over what needed to happen to move the entire team forward to our vision. And
Yeah.
after the fact, then I get info from people around me where they're like, yeah, I went to the clinical director and then I wanted to schedule something and they just asked me to send the question via email. That gutted me. Like, I think especially because again, if we're thinking of emotional caretaking, it's like,
Yeah.
oh my God, if
Yeah.
anybody ever says, I need to meet with you,
Yeah.
bitch, I'm going to call you right now. Like, what do you need?
That
Okay. I get
moment
that
when you
very
yeah.
rarely at this point, but because I have the right people in place.
Yeah.
Backtracking, that person, tells me this after the fact. And it's like, holy shit, I didn't even think to say, if you're not getting what you need from this relationship, I also want to know that. And then the employees are questioning, like, maybe I'm asking too much. Like,
For
I guess
sure.
it could be a question where it's like, no, we're here for you also. Like, leadership
Yeah.
isn't just here to move us towards a vision. We are here solely to support you in your functioning.
Yeah.
We're beholden to you as much as we are to the business. But yeah, it's one of those like this like little micro moment that's like maybe it's not that big of a deal. No,
Yeah.
it is a big fucking deal. Like that's
Yeah.
exactly what I don't want to happen. and it's
Mhm.
kind of the right person for the seat. And then
Mhm.
all my clinicians are like, well, yeah, it was just okay. That's like the mostly right person in the seat fucking
Mhm.
sucks. They might not suck as a person, but that
Yeah.
impact is gonna suck.
Mhm. For sure, for sure. Yeah, and, like, circling back to, like, something that we were talking about earlier, you were like, what happens when a person has maybe doesn't have the emotional depth or to understand their capacity, but you see that it's not working. And it was really, like, last year when I went through these couple of circumstances when I was like, "Oh, okay, I'm making the call. I'm making the
Yes.
call," right? Because it was I remember feeling like I'd go home and I would tell my husband, like, "I feel like I'm going crazy because
Yep.
I'm coming and I'm saying like, hey, this is like what I'm seeing and this is what's working and this is what's not." And I would get back almost like textbook right answers, you
Yep.
know?
Yep.
And then time would go on and I wouldn't see any of that come to fruition. And I was like, "What's happening?" And,
It does make you feel crazy. Yes.
yeah, yeah, and now, like, I'm so grateful for those experiences because now I feel like I can easily say, like, they don't have the capacity or maybe not capacity, but, like, they don't get it either. Like,
Or they
there's
don't
a
want it.
piece missing. Yeah, but, like, or they don't want it. Yeah, but it's not an automatic, like, "Hey, just to let you know, I have one problem, and as a result, we're moving you out of the position." But, like, if there's, like, repeated conversations in close proximity, like I think about this with my kids all the time, like, if I tell them how to do something and they're not able to do it over and over in close time, they don't have the skills to do it yet, and so I need to go more basic. Unfortunately, for my leadership positions, I can't. So, you gotta
Yeah, well,
get up or get out. Yeah, so
one thing that I wanted to expand on. Oh, damn it, Tara. What was it?
lacking insight in the position, you gotta make the call
That's the
sometimes.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, where I think that is really hard for me to do.
Mhm.
There's two. Another piston is feeling understood. And so I talk about like turning stones over. Like, is that everything? Like, have I asked everything? Have I looked from every angle?
Mhm.
What am I missing?
Yeah.
Like, reframe, you
Yeah.
know? And so if I don't feel understood, or if somebody starts to, they say they get it, but then they're not performing, I turn inward first where I'm like, hang on, okay, did I not explain this clearly? Like, wait, hang on,
Mhm.
what am I missing? Oh, I think I said it this way. Well, let me ask them what they understand. And so I end up like just spinning. I sort of
Mhm.
end up making these circles over and over and over. Like I'm thinking of like
Mhm.
a trail in the woods. So I will say having the right people around me then, like my integrator is way more just cut and dry. Like,
Yeah.
Tara, that was in the offer letter. Like we
Yeah.
treated them when they started. That was in the offer
Yeah.
letter. No, we've already
Yeah.
said this. And my DCO, my director of clinical ops, is also the same. So it's like I know I don't do that thing well. And again, that's going to be also a probably second piston that comes up for me
Mhm.
consistently is if I'm not understood, it's really hard for me to move because my
Yeah.
goal is if we're having a conversation, same as what you said way earlier, it's like most people come to the natural conclusion that this isn't the right fit for them. I want that thing. I don't want to fire people. I've had
Yeah.
talks, but a lot of times, even my clinical director leaving, it was me asking, like, I don't know if you want this job. Like,
Mhm.
I don't really know that you want what it is that we're doing. Him saying, yeah, I don't think I want it. And
Yeah.
so it's like, cool. But if he said, "No, I want it," then that would have just continued this fucking
Yeah.
song and dance of over and
Yeah.
over. Okay, well, I think
Mhm.
that I said this, but maybe I didn't say it right. That's the thing that I constantly have to be aware of and tend to internally because that can go on forever.
Yeah, you know what? I would say, like, this is a very new place I'm in where I'm not in that literal exact same spot, and I think it was just, like, the exposure therapy of last year that did it for me,
Yeah.
and last year was a, like, solid year. I feel like it was a very, like, functional year, but, like, that one position, like, really had me in internal turmoil for so long. And, like my integrator was saying to me, if you have the need to investigate, it's not a right fit.
I love that. Yeah.
Because like, she's like, every time you feel like you need to investigate something, it doesn't, she's not saying like, don't look at the numbers, but like excessively diving in, compiling data. You know what I mean? Like getting into the weeds in a ridiculous way. Every time you feel like you've needed to do that, here's been the conclusion. Like, here's the conclusion. And this is where the intuition part comes from, like for me. So just why don't you stop doing that? Because you get into the data and you allow that almost to like skew your decision making. And so like if I can juxtapose that to just like a recent conversation with a leadership team member and a therapist, I had two very similar conversations recently. And I wouldn't say that they went perfectly, honestly. I didn't leave the conversation thinking like they got back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like I left the conversation feeling like they heard what I said. They did not like it. They stated that they wanted time to think about it. And they brought another solution that I don't totally think will be the best solution, but I can see where they might think that is based on where they are in their journey. And so there's a line forward there. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, do I think they're still lacking insight in this position? Yeah, but like just like a client that doesn't have insight yet, you can't dose it to them before they're ready. People have to like have a lived experience. And so, like I have to see like a continuous forward. And I feel like looking at it like that is helpful for me.
It's like seeing the person in context.
Yeah.
Like, I remember being in quantitative analysis. We had to take 1 and 2 for my doc program. And so
Yeah.
the instructor, his name was Cody Ding. He was so awesome. I remember him in the very beginning of the class saying something like, I'm all the way over here and you all are all the way over here. I don't even know what it's like to be there anymore. But I think that with something like leadership or even like employees training folks and whatnot, it's person and context. I spend so much time, not even on purpose, but just I'm constantly referencing the business or thinking or grappling with something, or there's something
Yeah.
brewing in the back of my mind. I think people have had much less time and exposure to thinking about the thing than I have.
Oh, yeah.
That's it. Like
Yeah.
if this is the problem and you don't even really know it was a problem, I'm telling you right now, yeah, you come up with a solution, you think about it, try it out. I might know this probably isn't going to work, but
Yeah.
what the fuck ever. It doesn't hurt anything to give it a go. And it's of their own, like their decision or their solution, which
Yeah.
for me is like ownership is one of our values, own your shit. And so I think,
Yeah.
yeah, cool. You try something out and see if it goes well, even if I know it's not going to, if there's
Yeah.
no harm in this attempt and it's
Yeah.
moving you in the direction of you're learning why this might not work, or you're learning that this other thing is more effective for this reason. Boom. Oh, what more can
Yeah.
I ask for? I can't ask you to be where I am. That's not fair. And that's not going to happen. But I can ask you to do the thing that you're doing, which is actively grapple and think about a problem and come up with a solution
Yeah.
that's going to be based on where you're standing right now.
Yeah. 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 You know what? As you were talking, I was just thinking like, what freed me from some of these things. And I'm sure that there'll be a point where like I struggle through it again, like just another iteration of leadership. But my mentor was like, you should start making frameworks for how you're making decisions.
Yeah.
And that was a game changer for me because like a framework isn't this is how you make the decision. It's not a black and white thing. It's a process for how you think about something.
Yes.
And so then that made things really clear because another thing with it, I think is as an owner, as your company grows more and more, some people never see the owner. Like I'm a pretty involved owner and there's employees I don't see or they don't know how my decision making works. They certainly don't know me on a deep personal level. You know what I mean? So like when I just swoop in and make a decision, that can be a really bad look. Particularly at the last time they saw me was I was in workout clothes and I was moving a couch and maybe having a bad day and I looked a little eccentric. Like I can just look like a wackadoodle that like's coming in and making these erratic like boom decisions.
Yeah.
And that's not really what I'm going for, like so like and made this framework where it's like three, like, it's like a continuum. And on one end, so like the first level is there's no impact if the person just makes the decision. Maybe it's inefficient, maybe I disagree with it, but it's frankly, it's stylistic. So let it go. I don't need to have any input here. The second is there may be impact or it may be pretty inefficient. There may be a much more efficient way to do it. And I disagree with the approach. I feel like maybe have a better approach, but it's not high stakes, but long term it could be. And so why don't we do it your way, but we're going to debrief after, right? We're going to talk about it, like what worked, what didn't. And then the final is it's high risk. There could be immediate consequence to the business. And in that instance, I am going to step in and I'm going to make the call and we're going to talk about it. And so like I had to decide this, but then I also had to tell the team
Yes. Yeah.
because again, like if I know, but if I'm not telling them, remember this is this thing we talked about. But remember the last few months, we've been living here. So like this is just that one time. You have autonomy.
First of all, I fucking love that. And again, simpatico, because my brain constantly is thinking in frameworks.
Yeah.
Constantly thinking like, where am I conceptually grounded? Okay, but why are we doing this one thing? Sort of like, when we rolled out EOS to the entire team, we had already been doing it as a leadership team and even a little bit on the operations side for a solid year and a half. And what I've realized is we met for a quarterly. It was actually, no, that was a 2-day annual. It was a December we met.
Yeah.
And we met for this quarterly, and then there were some more like changes. I don't know if it was like accountability chart changes, or I don't remember even exactly what. Feeling like, fuck, I don't think that I want to tell the team. And it dawned on me, like, what is it? Why? I'm very upfront. Like, I don't, there's not really much that's hidden. The only thing I'm not comfortable sharing is like detailed finances, but in terms of like decisions, what we're doing, why, where we're going, etc., we're basically open books, you know. But before that, we hadn't rolled out EOS, and so I don't know when it dawned on me, but I was like, oh my God, we have to have a meeting. I have to roll this out to them to explain to them what we're doing, why we're doing it, how it shows up for them, etc. And so I mandated a full day, 8-hour EOS meeting. Everybody had to be there. And I said,
oh, wow.
Must be here. Like, this is negotiable.
Solid.
Yeah. Like, I'm booking a hotel office or whatever, just to be able to have everyone there. We're going to cater lunch. I'm going to do a presentation. It is non-negotiable. You must be there. And so that was incredible to do.
Yeah.
Because then in real time, like, of course, we talk about everything. I mean, it was a long presentation, but also really like engaged in questions and whatnot. And I told them at the outset, start jotting down as you're listening, just jot down issues, anything you're feeling, what you're noticing, what you're thinking, what you've seen in the business, etc. And at the end, or like at some point, you know, we compiled all the issues and we picked our top 3. And in real time, we worked through issues where it was like, okay, we're going to do this collectively. And then it was like being able to say to them every week, this is what we do. So when I come to you and we say, hey, this is a decision that we're making, you all exactly know this is the process we're going through. We're not just willy-nilly deciding shit.
Yeah.
I could easily do that, but I'm not allowed at this point because of the infrastructure that we have in place.
Yeah.
If we want to do something big, it lives here and we revisit it on a quarterly basis.
Yeah.
All of our rocks are in alignment with our vision, which is this. All our values are what we assess, you know, it's like being able to really bring to life how we make decisions. And you're right, because if they see me or somebody else swoop in and say like, boop, that's being changed.
Yeah.
You're like, what the fuck, man? Like, what issue? But
Yeah.
now we have status updates. We're constantly communicating about shit that's going on and what might change and like big things that might change, but also even little things and how to prep for it. And even that, the impact on people. Like, we're thinking about this, you know, what's the impact on people and what's it going to take to implement and et cetera. So I think I just was struck by, oh yeah, being able to roll out that EOS meeting with the entire team and walk through with them. This is how and why. This is what we do. This is how we show up. This is why we do it. Now you know, like none of this is willy-nilly. It's all very much on purpose.
Yeah.
That was super helpful. And for me, a good sign that it was working, I had someone resign within the next month.
Yep.
This is not what I want to
Yep.
do. I knew she was going to resign. I was like,
Yeah.
she's not here for this. Like, she wants to do her own thing.
Yeah.
Good. And she,
Yeah.
it
And
was,
that's empowering to
yeah,
let an employee self-select out because they leave with a better view of the company.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, that's cool.
Okay, so we are going to, just because of time, we're going to move on to the scenario.
Yeah.
I will read a scenario and basically, I don't know, we'll see where it goes. Okay, you have a high performing clinician. Clients love them. They're
Mhm.
booked solid, but dot, dot, dot. They're bypassing team protocols. They're
Mhm.
dismissive in team meetings and they're
Mhm.
undermining admin systems. You
Mhm.
delay the conversation because you really don't want them to walk,
Mhm.
especially with their client caseload.
Mhm.
Drafted emails, you've deleted them, you've rehearsed what to say, and you haven't yet.
Mhm. Mhm.
Boom. What do you do? What would you do? So if you're working with this person,
Yeah.
what would you do? And maybe also personally, like, have you done this? Have you?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So admin policies bypassing and
Bypassing team protocols, dismissive in team meetings, and undermining admin systems.
yeah. So like, what would the conversation look like for
Yeah.
me?
What would you do?
Yeah.
Yeah. What would the conversation look like?
Yeah. So I would let them go. But well, I shouldn't say I would let them go because that's like me assuming the conclusion. So I'll tell you the conversation of
Yeah.
what it would be. If it depends on where they were in the process. Like if we had had a coaching conversation or written warning, it would be a different outcome than if it was the first time I was addressing it. So
Yeah. Let's
if
assume
it was
first time.
okay,
Your
first
first
time
time.
I'm
Yeah.
addressing it. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So if it's the first time I'm addressing it, I would probably say something like, I wanted to meet with you to talk about some things that I'm noticing. Like, first off, like, you're doing a killer job with your caseload. We get such good feedback from you, from the clients. You're like really well sought after in intake. Like, people want to keep scheduling. And I love that. Like, I love that area of genius you have. But we have some other things that are coming up that are causing a struggle with team functioning. So policies and procedures aren't being followed, administrative things aren't being followed up on. And I sort of notice, and tell me if I'm seeing this right, in meetings, when things are brought up or things are addressed, and again, I might have this wrong, but like there's like a body language or almost a tone that it feels as though you're not attuned or you're not in alignment, or maybe you flat out disagree with the information being presented. And as a result, sometimes it comes off from my vantage point as dismissive. Can you talk me through those things? I know I threw a lot at you, but can you talk me through that and like, what's up? I think that's how I would start it.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
So I would I'm pointing out observations and I'm not acting, I'm being curious. And I would be looking for their insight on it. And I would be looking for any like ownership. If there was some, I would say, a great insight. I would like praise that. And then we would go on to, okay, here are the things I need to change. If there was none, I would tell them what I needed to change. And for like in a coaching conversation, I would say, with these policies and procedures, I need them, followed by X. And then when you're with other team members or in meetings, I really want to see your engagement be a little different. And if you disagree, I love that, bring it up. But like, we can't have your body language and your facial expressions be so out of alignment with silence because the communication just stops there. So these are the things like I'd like to like see. That's how I would like proceed.
Yeah. I love this.
Mm,
Yep. And I
that
think you would.
is that how you
Sorry.
would do too?
Yes.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. It would be the same. It would be, clinically, you're awesome. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, by today's book review, you
Yeah.
are retaining your clients. You have a super low churn rate. You're hitting your numbers, etc.
Yeah.
I probably would be more broad, I would say, but I get the sense that something doesn't feel right. Like I get the sense that maybe there's some dissatisfaction or
Mhm.
something you don't like about being here. And I just want to
Mhm.
explore this conversation. I don't know, and I could be wrong, but I want to hear from you. Like, is there something, I don't know, how's it going? How's it going with you?
Yeah.
And I would probably start there and see where they went. And
Mhm.
then if they said, yeah, I just, man, I like our team. I like being here. I like the clinical work. I just don't agree with some of the way things are ran. I
Mm.
probably would invite like, okay, tell me more about this.
Yeah.
And then I might even just say, I'm in a little bit of a pickle
Mhm.
because I hear what you're saying and I understand where you're coming from. Like
Yeah.
if I was in your shoes, I might even feel similarly. And my vantage point is so different. My view of how things are run, everything that's in place is intentionally designed. And so
Mhm.
I could give you context as to why we do it this way. And I'm happy to do that. But the
Mhm.
reality is that you still might not want to, but I still need you to. And
Yeah.
so, do you want context, or is it just nice to be able to share that you don't like something, knowing that you're still going to have to do it? And
Yeah.
then it might be something like that, you know? I always like when people, or like in meetings, I might even then, if they didn't bring up dismissiveness in meetings, I would say, hang on, tell me what I'm like, what are you thinking about meetings? How are meetings going for you?
Yeah.
And I do like I'll tend to ask first because
Yeah.
I don't want to influence the conversation in the exact like direction that I want. I
Mhm.
want them to start walking there first. And the reality is like almost everybody voices the thing that you already want to say. They're going to bring it up if it's a safe
Yeah.
enough place and they are being honest and you're asking them like I noticed something's wrong.
Yeah.
Tell me, like, is something wrong? How do you feel? What's going on? What do you think about here? Blah, blah, blah. They're probably
Yeah.
going to start to lay out some crumbs in the direction that I'm already wanting to go.
Yeah.
So my preference is they start and then I tag along because I think in my experience, they're way more receptive to what I have to say because I'm basically validating what it is that they just said.
Mhm.
I'm not
Mhm.
like presenting it as new.
Yeah, I love that.
But I think the general approach is going to be like the
Yeah.
essence of what we're doing is the same. Like, I'm just gonna bring up something that I notice, and I wanna figure out what the problem is, and then we're gonna talk through, "Okay, you hate this thing, and I can
Mhm.
understand that, but it's also required, so I need to know what it is that you wanna do. Because
Yeah.
if you wanna be here, like, this is part of it. You don't have to love it, but you also like, I can't have dismissiveness or what could be perceived as dismissiveness or you bypassing things because that impacts a bunch of other people around you who then have to go back and clean up your mess.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
so I don't fucking want that. We actually had that with the CD where he was like, I just want to exist in a silo. And I was like,
Mm.
but you don't. And so when you act like that, guess who cleans everything up? All of these people around you now are going back and cleaning your mess up.
Yeah.
But yeah, probably a similar ish approach, but I'm going to give more space at the beginning, which also
Yeah.
is probably a function of the emotional caretaking. I want them to step into
Yeah.
the conversation willingly and I wanna be there with them when they do it, and then I'm gonna tag along with them.
Yeah. I love that. I always love hearing your approach because it's so person forward, which again isn't my like natural strength. And so I love that.
Funny to me also because I don't know if it's because I like directness, I just
Yeah.
wanna talk, like, let's just
Yeah.
fucking talk, come on. So, your style also comes across as it is nice, like, it's
Oh,
kind,
thanks. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
honest, and it's kind, and so I sort of feel funny because I never use the word nice is not, like, a word that's common in my
Yeah.
vocabulary, but, like, kindness,
Yeah.
you're being honest, you're being clear, you're
Yeah.
being kind, you're
Mhm.
figuring out how do we solve this in a collaborative way.
Mhm.
Like, what the fuck else do you want out of somebody? Like, would you rather be chastised? Would you rather be like lied to?
Yeah.
No, and no. I don't want to be chastised or lied to. I want someone to be straight up with me and I want it to be done nicely.
Yeah, for
Sorry.
sure.
With kindness. Of course, I'm like, oh, he is nice, but nicely. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I do have a real, like, an example of this. I don't know if you let me share it real
Do it.
quick.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so, we're salary unlimited PTO, and, we hire a lot of brand new graduates out of, school that maybe this is their first job, like, literally ever,
Yeah.
right? Almost all of them, they've never had more than 1 or 2 jobs. So a lot of folks in their mid-20s. So, they have to do a quota hour and,
Which, hang on, clarify what that is for me. I don't know what a quota hour
a
is.
quote they have to do, they have an annual amount of session they have to do per year
Yes,
in
cool. Thank
the
you.
agreement, and they can like, flex things with that. And so we had a moment where it wasn't just one therapist, but like there was almost like a subculture that was taking root. And a therapist in clinical supervision had said out loud, I feel like this unlimited PTO thing is a lie. And the supervisor handled it beautifully and was like,
Yeah.
tell me more or whatnot. And then like it had come up again and other people, the body language was similar. And so I was like, oh, like I'd like to pop in and like have a conversation. Right. So I came in and like they had shared that intimately. And so initially I could see that nobody wanted to come forward and be like, yeah. And I said, hey, the worst thing you can do in this moment is not tell me exactly how you feel, because I might not have a solution for you right now. I might not have a solution for you at all, but I'm certainly not going to have a solution for you if I don't know the exact nature of the problem. And like what came from it is they were like, basically they're so new to the field that they didn't understand the natural ebbs and flows of clients coming in and out. And so they would have a lot of anxiety about meeting their hours, and they didn't feel like they could take time off because they were afraid of like, what if I have cancels in the future? When the infrastructure is really well built to protect them from that. But just because of their newness to the field, they couldn't see that. And so we didn't change the structure off of that, but it was extremely helpful for me because I was like, I need to add more things in my onboarding to prep them.
Yeah.
And I need to dose them with this throughout. So like, thank you for that feedback,
Yeah.
And it's even evolved into a conversation of now we're thinking about like, because we've gotten so much feedback on it, like this is fine, but, and I'm like, man, I think I'm just going to have the licensed people maybe in years to come do this. And I'm going to maybe switch up the structure of it. That's just slightly more structured where they have freedom, but structured enough to where I just don't want someone to feel a dilemma to take PTO that I know they can afford to take off. You know what I mean? But I would have never had that had we not had this like little bit of a messy conversation where somebody's essentially like calling the policies that I created a lie, which I take no offense to, but like had I been offended in that moment, it would have all, like I had to just really be curious. So I was really thankful for that they felt safe enough to just like sort of say those things to me.
I think this is a fantastic
Mm.
example
Mm.
because I I can't help but wonder what percentage of people would have done the thing that you just said not to do, which is be offended.
Oh, sure.
No, what do you mean it's a lie? Like, what do you
Yeah.
tell me what you're talking about? But then they're only asking, tell me what you're talking about so they can double down on why it's not a lie.
Why it's not a lie or just like
Yeah.
getting too
So,
much in the details of it. Yeah.
yeah, they get
Mhm.
stuck in this like, well, no, it's not a lie. Of course you can take unlimited PTO. And then there's no like diving into, hang on. What do you mean it's a lie? Like, what does that mean? Tell me, I don't
Yeah.
understand. Like, what is happening that you are saying this, that this is coming out of your mouth? Like, tell me more
Yeah.
about this. I want to understand
Mhm.
exactly what you said. I can't solve anything if I don't even know what the problem is. And for me, this also is like, yeah, IDS, like
Mhm.
just, we need to identify the actual root cause of the issue.
Yeah.
And the reality is like for new therapists in particular, they're so fresh and so green that they don't know the ebbs and flows. They don't know the seasons. They don't know how things look over the course of a year or two. They don't know their average attendance rate or cancel. They
Mhm.
don't know what their retention is. There's so much that's unknown
Yeah.
that then it's scary. Like more unlimited something is actually scary instead of relieving. But you wouldn't have known any of that had you not asked,
Yeah.
said like, hang on, tell me more about
Mhm.
this. Yes,
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, one of the items I think in the leadership manifesto that I created, one of the things is that I co-created with chat. One of the
Mhm.
things is seek clarity before resolution or nuance
Mm.
before
Yeah.
resolution. Like do not solve a problem unless you know everything about it that you can. And
Yeah.
if you're offended about something, then also don't solve it. And defensiveness is not my go-to horseman. So I don't get very
Mhm.
defensive. So
Mhm.
it's easy to be like, yeah, well, don't get defensive, just ask. But for some
Mhm.
people, they get defensive and it's like, yeah, I think your job as a leader, same as like as a parent, your job
Yeah.
is you have to set your own shit aside. It's not
Mhm.
really sure, like you're here and it's about you and this is reflective of you, but it's also not all about you. And these people are heavily invested in what you're building and they're
Yeah.
building it with you and you couldn't build it without them. And so you also should be invested in them. And yeah, I love that example and how you handled it. And I would have absolutely handled it very similarly.
Cool. Thank you. That's so validating.
Yeah. All right. I think that's it. Is there anything else you want to
I don't
share? You
think
want to talk
so.
about that feels important or relevant or
This this was fun.
this was fun. Okay.
Right.
Thank you. I really appreciate you doing this with me.
Yeah.
For anybody who's wrapping this up with us, again, I'm going to ask if you love these episodes and any of the others, make sure you subscribe
Mhm.
and review the podcast because when you review it, it hits more people who need to hear
Mhm.
messages. So I appreciate your time, you, Nicole, and also you, the listener. And I will see you all next time. Thanks. Bye.